And we're all set. So welcome, Tracy.
Thank you. You can hear me okay?
I can.
Great. So thank you for having me. I really enjoy participating in the University Express program. Looking forward to talking with you. Normally, as you can see on the screen, I usually present this with someone else, my colleague, Sadie Kratt. She's unavailable today, so I'm going to take the reins fully on this one, but we'll get through our slides and then we can answer questions at the end. So I'm here, Tracy Skalski, Sustainability Coordinator out of the Department of Environment and Planning, as Kitty just said, and today I'll talk about climate change impacts, specifically around Western New York, what we're seeing, what we're going to be seeing, and then action that we have taken in Erie County so far, and then ways that you can get involved. Okay, so I start with this slide first. This is from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. They come out with annual reports, and this was in their 2020 report. And I like to show it because it's a pretty good visual on, and when I talk climate change to people, they like to talk about the cycles of the Earth, the warming of the planet, how it being very natural. And it is. As you can see, this is a very short blip in history, only 400,000 years ago. But there's that cycle. It goes up and down. You know, you see it warms and it cools and it warms and it cools. So that is very true. There's that line right in the middle that we like to point out, though, that talks about that 1950 level and the projection that you see of the levels of carbon in the atmosphere from that point on. So it was doing the normal up and down. That level is now where we see it jump up really high. And that's our current level at the top there, which is surpassing 400 parts per million of carbon in the air, carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere. And for centuries, it's never been above that line. And so we look at that line and we think about 1950 and the industry that was happening around that time, and we attribute that to human activity to, altering our atmosphere somewhat. And so what are we seeing in Erie County? We're seeing, so Erie County has worked on a few different programs trying to understand the impact that we're seeing from climate change right now and what we're going to see in the future. And what we've done is we've developed a climate vulnerability assessment program, and that is a big project. We're working with the University of Buffalo and Buffalo State College and trying to look at a lot of the data around what has been changing in our area and come up with specific hazards that we feel are going to be at the top of our priority list here in Erie County. And that's what you see on your screen. We see increased flooding events associated with extreme storms. You know, we see that now. These storms are coming in really strong, and they're really throwing a lot of rain and wind our way. And so high winds, again, is another one of our areas that we're really concentrating on for impacts in our area. Increased heat events, which can be really detrimental to our health and our infrastructure, along with those high winds and the floods. And then invasive species and vector-borne diseases, so critters and insects, and increased in those types of things around us that could potentially bite us and cause more health effects. So those are the top four that we're looking at through that climate vulnerability assessment. And I'll quickly go through the risks. So what are the risks associated with the changes that we're seeing? And with the high level top three topics are the environment, the economy, and our health. And so I'll take a little bit of time and I'll go through each of those, starting with environment. So warming temps. We see the increase in temperatures that can increase, well, increased temperatures equals increased water temperature. And that can increase the harmful algal blooms that we hear about in Erie County. And in Lake Erie in general. Erie County is on the deeper end of Lake Erie, and so you hear more about it over in Ohio, where it's shallower, but we're seeing that come this way. So those warming temperatures really can affect our lake, and it takes away the nutrients in the lake, and these are our drinking water. This is our natural, our fresh water, some of the biggest freshwater regions in the world. And so we really want to make sure that we focus on Lake Erie and keeping it healthy. Changing climate with vectors and invasive species. So again, things like mosquitoes and ticks, they thrive in warmer climates. And so those warmer climates can then increase those species and then increase the chance of us getting sick from bites attributed to those insects. But then invasive species as well can also threaten Lake Erie. So there's invasive trees and there's invasive animals that can be brought in associating with climate change as well, that can affect our land and our water. And then more frequent and intense storms can overwhelm our infrastructure, causing flood. If you live in the city or even beyond, you know that we have a combined sewer overflow. So those really heavy rain events can inundate that system, and then we have that water is then poured into the lake, bringing waste and debris into the streets or into the waters and things like that. Our infrastructure isn't great for these frequent storms and flooding, as well as our homes and our neighborhoods necessarily. And then looking at the two charts that I have up there, the first one on the left is just really interesting because it shows New York State and it shows the high emission scenario and a low emission scenario. So if we are on the lower end of these emissions or greenhouse gas emissions or that carbon in the air, even at the low end, it shows our temperature significantly increasing over the decades to come. And so our New York State climate will feel more, around Ohio on this low emission scenario at the 2040 to 2090 year mark. And at that high emission scenario, it's even more similar to farther south, kind of Georgia-y. And so what we have, our infrastructure here and our lakes and everything really that's accustomed to our climate here can be significantly altered if we start having these really hot, sustained temps. And then the chart to the right, it's an interesting fact that Erie County has never recorded a 100-degree day. This is something that I recently learned. We've had none. We've had 99-degree days, but nothing has been clocked at 100. And we're expecting that to change. And so you see that graph shows, again, it's the different emission scenarios, but farther down the line, not that far in the future really, we're expected to see upwards of 14 or 1,500-degree days in Erie County when we're not ready for that. And again, the buildings that we have, the lake and the crops, a lot of our ag and rural areas, they're not used to that. And neither are we, and we need to be prepared for that, especially when it comes to our health. And it would have been a great segue to go into health on that, but it doesn't. I have economy next, so I'll talk a little bit on how this is going to affect not only our environment, but our money, our wallets as well. So I show this chart. This is out of NOAA, which is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. This shows 2021 billion-dollar weather and climate disasters. There were over $20 billion, each of those were $1 billion that were spent to help, fix or to help from an event that was climate related. So whether it's wildfires out in the west, hurricanes in the south, we know it's very expensive for these climate, for these severe storms and these climate events to happen, and we're paying for it. And, sometimes Western New York is thought of as this oasis or a place where people are going to migrate to because we have kind of a little bit easier transition, I guess, from climate change. We don't have big wildfires in the west per se, or the hurricanes in the south, and we don't have the coastal flooding that we're going to see. But impacts here are going to be felt. Not only were we able to see particulates in the air from wildfires, now they're getting closer to home. Just the other day, there was a wildfire alert potential right in our. It came up on my phone, actually, right in our area. So just because we are kind of in a slight bubble doesn't mean we're not going to feel the impact from climate change. And then if people do migrate here, we need to be prepared for that as well. And so now I do switch over to our health and issues that we could see associated with climate change around air quality and, you know, putting pressure on people with those people with cardiovascular issues, obesity, diabetes, you know, some other long-term issues could really be impacted by our changing climate. So this slide shows our regional health effects. Temperature-related death and illness from extreme events is not only felt here, obviously, we have a whole region-wide effect that we're looking at. Heat and weather events are a public concern. They can be life-threatening. Many of our buildings in this area lack air conditioning, and we have an older building stock and a high proportion of seniors and low-income residents that magnify this threat. This region was identified by the Center for Disease Control to be exceptionally sensitive to urban air pollutants, which include ground level ozone, which is a pretty harsh greenhouse gas that is increased by heat. Increased soil erosion, agricultural runoff, including manure and fertilizer and pesticides, they're a big issue and are linked to the algal blooms in the lake. And excess of nutrient loading in our water bodies, and then possible food safety as well when it comes to not only our drinking water and our agriculture, but also pests and those increased non-native species that are coming in can affect our food. So all these are public health issues that we really need to think about and tie into climate change. With warmer winters, snow melt is expected to increase and faster, and then that will increase pollutant flow into our waters and things like that. So it's a regional effect, and it affects our well-being and our mental health as well. Now, this last chart that I'm going to show is really interesting to look at because it shows how the impacts affect our health. And so rising temperatures increases severe weather, which can increase injuries and fatalities. It increases air pollution, which also then, like I said before, cardiovascular, asthmatic. There's the warmer air holds pollutants and particulates in the air, and so those, you know, can affect you if you have any underlying respiratory disease. And allergies even. I mean, we were seeing extended allergy seasons or earlier allergy seasons because of that warm air and the ability for those particulates to hang around. And then water impacts, we've talked about a few times, food and water supplies and environmental degradation due to that forced migration. So people are leaving from those areas which are no longer habitable and going to the places that are, which can cause some conflicts there. So this is just a great tool that we like to show so that you can see everything that we have, all the different ways that climate can affect you as an individual. And it's really important to show this connection with human health, especially during climate action planning, which is what the county is working on now. We look for community engagement throughout the development of this plan, which is the next segment that I'll get into in a moment. But tying to health resonates. You know, people see climate change as something that is too big to wrap your mind around and too far in the future to worry about. So we want to really make sure that we're connecting it, that it is something that you should think about now and things that you can identify with, like it's going to affect me now because I have asthma or I have this underlying health disease. This is my health. It's going to affect me. It's going to affect my family or my property or my community. So these connections are just key as we're trying to engage the community and get our plan information across and ask for engagement. And so that's where we are now. So Erie County is now developing this community climate action plan. We have started our sustainability program. It's been about 7 years since we've been really in the spotlight. You might have heard the county executive talk about the different ways that we're working on our greenhouse gas emission reductions and things like that. we have our climate action and sustainability plan for our internal operations. So we have looked at our building stock, our energy use, our transportation. We're actively looking at that right now, and trying to reach the goals that we had set for that reduction. So we looked internally already. Now we're facing the community, and we're trying to develop a plan that is from a government standpoint. So what can the county do? You know, as government, we live in New York State. It's a home rule state, which means that, you know, we can't govern over all of the municipalities, although it's big and overarching everyone. You know, the towns and villages have their own government. They make their own rules, home rule. So what can we do as a county? We have only certain levers that we have. And so this plan is really specific to that, but definitely involved by community. And so we've set pretty aggressive goals. We have a community climate change task force that meets regularly, and it's stakeholders throughout the community. So we have universities, we have nonprofit organizations, we have youth, we have teachers. I mean, we try to really reach out to the community and have all these people. There's about 60 people at the table monthly that met since 2018, talking about what we can do and how we can partner with the community to create this plan and make it meaningful and make sure that we're putting the community first. And so they have been meeting for quite a while now, trying to develop the different chapters of the plan. While we were in development, so we took our task force and we broke them up into the 10 different working groups, which are the chapters of the plan, and they started thinking about how we can, you know, what's our overall goal for each chapter, what are the strategies that we can come up with that would reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the community, and then what are the action items that we can physically do as a county and with partners to make those reduction goals a reality. And then through all this, New York State had come out with a law. It's called the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, or the Climate Act for short. And that's happening right now. They're scoping out this Climate Act at the state level, so above us, obviously. And what we're looking to do is now align with those goals, because it makes total sense if the state comes out with a plan, for us as a county to align with their goals, everything then will be in a similar line down the way, and then we can advocate for things for the municipalities. And they have really big reduction goals. They're looking to reduce 85% of greenhouse gases and 40% emission reductions by 2050. I have that wrong. It's 85%. And then 40% emission reduction by 2050. So 85 overall by 2050, and then 40% of that has to go to these disadvantaged communities, which they're defining. They have a whole definition online on what qualifies as a disadvantaged community. But typically, you know, it's communities that we've seen in the past where they've been severe. They seem to have these environmental justice components against them already, like put in place. And so we're looking at those communities, and we're going to try to make sure that our plan is equity focused and making sure that those communities are not in the front line again. And so a lot of this is focused around equity, which is really great. It really makes sure that we're looking at, it's not only the city, it's the suburbs, it's rural, it's all of Erie County, but there are pockets of these communities that we're really identifying to make sure that we're putting a lot of our programs into those areas so that they don't feel the brunt of climate change worse than all of us, than anybody else would. And then public involvement is key. So we're really making sure that the community is as involved as possible. I don't want this to be a plan that's coming out from the government level and then not have the community have had their voice heard. And so I go out and I talk to a lot of people. We do a ton of outreach, and you know, I tell them, like, what are you seeing? Everyone is affected by climate change differently. What are you seeing in your community? What do you think we need to do as a county government? How can we work together? And so there's so many ways that you can be involved and that communities can be involved to make sure that we are listening and we are putting in the plan exactly what you are seeing and feeling in your community. So this next slide just shows those different working groups. And so the top three, climate justice, communicating progress, and climate resilience, are like they're the overarching working groups that are in this plan. So basically those hit every single one of these working groups. But otherwise you can see we have transportation, we have ag and food. We're looking at economic and workforce development because there is a lot of job opportunities coming out of these actions associated with climate change. And there's nature-based solutions. There's things we can just do, such as planting trees. You know, there's things that we can do that are nature in the solution, that are natural. Consumption and waste. Everybody, we all consume products, and we all, you know, have garbage and recycling and things like that. So we're really addressing that. And then how we commute to work and how we work, you know, move around our communities in the transportation. And then the big one is commercial energy. So that's our biggest emission sector. And so we're trying to focus in on how we can, conserve energy and then switch to a more renewable source of energy. But those top three overarching, climate justice, they focus on that equity piece. So they're looking at everything that comes out of these committees and making sure that everybody in Erie County is being thought about. So equity, so it fits everyone. So that's their job in that committee, is making sure that everyone is at the table and that we're not missing any pieces or any people, really, when we're talking about these action items. Communicating progress is all this. It's just getting the word out there. A, we're creating a plan. B, the community needs to be involved and can be involved. And C, you know, it's a living document. It's something that can be talked about from, you know, as soon as we're done, it's not going to sit on a shelf. We're going to be pushing this a lot and making sure that you are involved from community groups down to individuals. And then climate resilience. So we talk about mitigating or reducing the impacts of climate change, but we also need to talk about being resilient from them because they are happening now, and we need to make sure that we're prepared to for these impacts as they happen. So it is about reducing and stopping the impacts from happening, but it's also about, well, we're going to feel some of these. We're feeling them now. How can we be resilient against them? So how can you get involved? This is right on our website. We have a really nice website, www.erie.gov/climate-action, and that'll give you all this information on involvement, plus all that background information that I just gave. But we really look for involvement at all different levels. We broke it down by time to make it easy. If you only have 1 minute, we have the ability to sign up for emails. And those email signups come right to me. And then once or twice a month, we send out emails on opportunities revolving around our climate action planning. Every time a working group comes up with a strategy or an action item, we send it out to that email so that you can give your feedback to us. And that feedback goes right back to that working group. And then they are looking at exactly what you said and putting it into the plan. If you have 5 minutes only, we do a lot of social media or just sharing of information. We have brochures online. We have social media posts online. So we just ask that, you know, you take the images and you spread the word. It's really just about getting the word out to the community members as deep as possible that we're working on this and we need more info back from you. If you have 10 minutes, we have a survey online as well on that same website under the Get Involved tab. That's how you're going to find all of these. And it's a community survey, that'll give us some information on how climate change is impacting you. And then if you have more time than 10 minutes, you can meet with us. Anybody from our Department of Environment and Planning staff love to do these types of presentations, or sit down in a room and chat, or go to your community block club, or go to your book club even, you know, anything that you have in the community, we're willing to come and chat about our program to you. And then finally, 1 hour a month, you become a climate ambassador. And so that's someone that we usually will go with them to those organizations or their community groups and talk with them, and then we'll feed the information to the ambassador and let them go off on their own and talk about what we're doing and hand out the information and potentially hold their own meetings as well. And that's the slide, which I don't have to go too much into more. There's more online, but it's really a flexible commitment, and it's not only leaving you on your own to do your own thing. You know, we have DEP staff that come and help out and make sure that the message is clear. And but it's a great way to be the pillar in your community and actually, you know, have a stake in this plan, is to become an ambassador and spread the word beyond just me chatting to you. And then I like to show this slide because this is something that, you know, people think, again, climate change is so big and there's not much, what is it, you know, just me doing isn't really going to do much, but individual action is enormous. It's really key. If, you know, if one person does it, that's great, but if many people do it, now we're starting to see an impact and we're starting to see a change. So there's things that you can do in your daily life that really will make a difference. And first and foremost is speaking up, so advocating. You know, we talk a lot about talk to your elected officials, talk to you know, your towns and your legislators in your area, and really advocate, be involved, and say we really need to be part of this, and make sure that they're on board. You know, we talk to municipalities a lot, but we really need community members to talk to their own municipality leaders and say, this is super important. We're seeing a lot of, you know, this X, Y, and Z in my community. So advocacy is huge, and really they listen. You know, their constituents are talking, and that's what gets a lot of these leaders moving. And then other things such as, again, nature-based solutions, so plants and protecting plants. So, you know, planting trees really makes a difference. Protecting plants, it helps provide not only shade, which is great for these excess heat days, but it's a carbon sink, it's called. So it actually draws carbon out of the atmosphere. And so all of this greenery, you know, it's a win-win. It's not only protecting us, but it's improving the quality of the atmosphere. We can look at our own energy use, and we can choose clean energy. So that's really easy, you know, switching over to LED lights, unplugging even, and turning off lights when you're not in a room, or unplugging appliances if possible when not in use. So they're just energy use. It's just energy that's being wasted, and energy relies on fossil fuels and relies on greenhouse gas emissions are coming out every time we have all of these things on. Turning off your computer at night if you're at work. And then you can choose a cleaner energy supply. So there's a lot of programs out there. There's community solar and different renewable content that you can get through your utility, things like that. But you can choose where your energy is coming from. Changing your commute. Maybe you can carpool with somebody, or walking or biking instead. We work really hard right now on trying to get complete streets passed, policy passed in our area, which will you know, make biking and walking a little easier. Right now, our area and actually our world has been developed based on a vehicle. You know, there's a lot of parking spots and places, you know, for us to fly in our cars, and we really need to change our culture and start thinking more about how can we get to places other than jumping in a car by myself and you know, using gasoline, and that alone is a pollution, but is a point pollution. But you know, it's a lot healthier for us as well if we walk places or ride our bikes. And then we can choose what we want to buy and consume. And so it's really important to start thinking about, like, you know, what am I purchasing? Am I purchasing it? Can it be recycled? Can I buy or use something that is reusable instead of single use? We live in a very single use society right now where everything's very convenient. And so these one-time single use things are just not only very polluting. Plastics, you know, I could talk for hours on plastic alone. So, you know, but we have that power as consumers on what you know, what we demand is what they're going to produce. So really being conscious about what we are buying and consuming, and how we're treating that product at the end of its life before we buy it, as long as what we know about that, is just a responsible way to prevent some of these wastes. And then quickly, I'm just going to go into some, so I already went into the efforts, I guess. The Climate Action and Sustainability Plan for Internal Operations is our internal plan, and that was published in 2019. It was adopted by the Ledge the same year. We're actively implementing the action items in that plan, and it's updated every year. It's all available online, so you can see what we have done. And it feeds into our Climate Smart community. We were designated a silver community, which is the highest level in that program. It's a DEC program, or Department of Environmental Conservation program, which is a state level. And it gives different action items that organizations or governments or municipalities can do in order to gain points. And when you reach a threshold of points, that's when you reach these certified levels. And we're only the third county in the state to have reached silver level, and I believe we're the largest. Don't quote me on that, but I believe we're the largest community that has reached the silver certified Climate Smart community status, which is really exciting. But again, it's living. Both of those two plans are living, and we're continuously trying to better ourselves internally. And then that also has some community actions as well. And then Clean Energy Communities is new. It's also a state program. It's by NYSERDA, which is New York State Energy and Research Development Association. The A might be wrong. That is about energy, because energy is such a greenhouse gas problem. When we do inventories, energy is always our biggest, chunk of what we're giving off. And so we really wanted to look internally on how we can be more energy efficient and reduce our consumption and things like that. And we offered different trainings to municipalities on energy storage and battery storage and things like that. And again, it's similar to Climate Smart communities where it's a point system, but we've reached a threshold. We're now considered a clean energy community, and we've qualified for grant funding. So a lot of these programs offer then funding streams for us to use into different energy efficient actions. And so we're really trying to just, have a revolving type fund where we put things in that are going to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, and then that energy saved will go into a new program to do the same. And that's the end of my presentation. We just end with a quote: "The key to success is often the ability to adapt." And we're really going to see adaptation, is a necessity when we're talking climate change. But the county is really excited that, we're really happy to be, forward-facing when it comes to impacts from climate change. And, this Community Climate Action Plan, I really urge you to take a look at what we're working on and be as involved as possible. And I would love to end it there and answer any questions, or we can just chat. Thank you.
Hey, Tracy, great job. Really, this was a great presentation, one of the better ones I've seen.
Thank you. I'll stop sharing now so we can see.
I especially like the call to action. So very important. But I'm going to unmute our guests to see if they have any questions. That's caller.
Hello.
I unmuted you.
Oh.
Okay.
Then Paul.
All right.
Unmuted you.
National Public Radio had something very interesting on a couple of days ago, a movement called NomoMay, which means don't mow your lawn in the month of May, because the pollinators, the bees and other insects and animals, need a nice tall grass with flowers, dandelions and such to pollinate. And we need this. Problem with it is, of course, there are laws that regulate the mowing lawn, that kind of thing. And if your lawn is too tall, you're going to get a notice stuck to your front door. But I think it's in there. Another factor is if you go into, well, I shop at Lexington Co-op. Get most of my groceries there. I'm disappointed that for a long time now, for a couple of years, I've been using a lot of these transparent plastic containers for their baked goods. And these, I
Sure.
understand plastic is not recyclable. Uh, Only about 9% of it is really recyclable. The other, what, 90% is a scam. Most of the plastic goes in the garbage. Okay. I'd like to see the co-op stop using that plastic.
Mhm.
Okay. How?
Yeah, no, thank you, Paul. Those were great, great comments. NomoMay is incredible. I love it. I think the village of Hamburg is doing it, honestly. So as a county government, I would love to. And actually, we've been talking with our recycling and our healthy lawn initiative team, trying to advocate for that, because you're right. It's very important that our pollinators are fed and are healthy and alive. And I live in a neighborhood that has a lime green hue to it, because everyone around me uses pesticides, and I get those yellow flags nearby me, and I cringe, and I walk my dogs, and I'm terrified. And then you go to my lawn, and it's filled with dandelions, and I'm one of maybe 5 in my neighborhood, so I'm sure I am looked at differently than the rest. But the other ones look like golf courses, and I don't want to live in a golf course. So NomoMay is such an important initiative, and honestly, it comes down to education. So people don't realize that they put these pesticides on their lawn, and it looks okay. It looks, there's no weeds or anything, but you get one rain right after that, all those pesticides wash into our storm drain, which is not treated. So it's going right into our creeks and then into our lake. And so all of that fresh water is getting all of those pollutions that is just running off of your land. And so Healthy Lawn Initiative is something the county does work on. We have a gnome. His name is Freddie. And he's our mascot, or our gnome Scott. Now they name it something else. I can't remember what it is. But either way, he's a giant lawn gnome that is associated with our Healthy Lawn Initiative. And so we're heavily promoting that, especially in the spring and in the fall when people start applying those pesticides. But I will put NomoMay into the parking lot brains of the nature-based solutions working group as a suggestion from this group. So that way, when they're coming with actions, maybe that could be one that the county can advocate for the different municipalities to jump onto. And then recycling, recycling's the tough one. And I always get a recycling question, and I'm not a recycling expert, so I'm gonna just kind of start with that, but you're right. Those thin clamshells that pastries and to-go come in, not recyclable. Only 1s and 2s are. So the bottom triangle with the number 1 and number 2, and honestly, I don't even think they all are recyclable. And you're right, I've been to the recycling facility, and it is scary. You go there, and how much is going into the waste stream when you put it in your bin thinking you're doing the right thing, and it's not going the right way. It ends up in the garbage just from that facility. That's how plastic bags were too. People used to put them in their front curbside bin thinking, yeah, I'm recycling, and it's not. So right now our message is find out what your hauler is really recycling and only put that in your curbside bin. Like glass is an issue. My town does not recycle glass. So I, throw my glass away and I cringe every time I have to do it. But realistically, glass, if it gets dumped into the big truck, it shatters, it has liquid in it still, and it contaminates the rest of the recycling. So it's not good to put things in the recycle bin that aren't recyclable, because it ends up almost ruining the good commodities that are in there and can still have some value to it. There are things at the state level, bottle bill, and employee, producer responsibility is another bill that's out there that are targeting like the manufacturer, that they have to start packaging things that we buy, like from Amazon, in things that are recyclable. So they can't just wrap things in plastic that's not recyclable and ship it. So it's a producer responsibility, that's what it's called, producer responsibility law that the county is is looking at being an advocate for. And then the bottle bill would charge you if you were going to buy like a bottle of wine. It would have that 5-cent deposit or a deposit on it, but then you can return it and they can reuse it. And so it's a different waste stream. It's no longer goes recycling, it's now you return it. And so those are two pieces of legislation that will help the recycling. You could talk to our recycling team. I could give you his name afterwards or anything. The recycling specialist on staff here, he has a lot of information on things like that, as well as a healthy lawn.
Hey, any more questions today?
I've got another. Hello.
Sure. Oh, sorry. There we go. Okay, Paul, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Another comment or question is, does the county have any kind of inspection routine whereby they determine what is recycled, what is not, at each of the recycling facilities? Do they grade these people, or do we just believe everything they tell us about what they're doing with various plastics? And is there recycling? Is there an inspection procedure for this?
I'm not sure about an inspection procedure, but I know that our recycling specialist has talked about, the different haulers. There's only really 2 or 3 in this area. It's Waste Management and it's Modern. So those are the 2, and there's one more that I always forget, but we're Modern in my neighborhood. And that sheet that they give you, or it's available online, will tell you what they recycle and what they don't. And it's believable for sure, because they're going to make money on it. I mean, honestly, that's like the bottom line. It's the commodities that come in, you have to have a value to it. And so they're not going to take stuff that's, and say it's recyclable and not. And they don't want non-recyclables in the bin, because then it has the potential to contaminate it. So I would stick to and they update it annually, because again, just like what I was talking about before, recycling goes up and down too. And from what I've been hearing, it's starting to go up. We used to send everything to China, which is not a great, solution. And then we came to find out, because then almost none of it was being recycled. So we're looking more domestic, I guess. We need more domestic solutions, if you ask just my personal opinion. But those companies definitely will tell you what they can and cannot recycle, because that's their business. And but I don't know of any inspection routine. Like, I don't know of anybody going over there and overseeing what they're doing. I just have a feeling that because it's business, that they're not gonna tell you to put something in the recycle bin that they don't want in there due to that potential contamination. But I can ask, I can find out and see what our recycling team says about something like that. If you want to put your email address or phone number in the chat, I can definitely get back to you.
That is put into those bins. And if only 9% of that gets recycled, then there's 91% that's going into the waste stream. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we're getting our money's worth from these recycling places. That's what I wonder about.
Yeah, it's expensive for sure. Municipalities spend a lot on recycling. But it is a state law that the municipalities have to offer recycling. So, but again, it kind of hit rock bottom, especially with even before COVID, it was pretty bad. But there is improvement, and there are improvements on the way. And again, I don't have all the answers, because that's not my area of expertise, but you're not wrong. But if you do want more information, just leave your contact information, and I can have someone you can talk with about recycling and where it's at. And I think they actually have a University Express that they talk only about recycling. Their whole presentation is on recycling. So maybe Kitty, if you have, let Paul know. I'm pretty sure they have one. I don't know if they do it virtually or if they do it in person, but I know that they are part of this program as well.
Recycling 101. I'll try to look it up real quick here.
Mhm.
But yes, Tracy, so in my neighborhood, everyone uses the lawn fertilizer. And then I actually feel bad when they're the ones that should feel bad. Like, because I don't use it. But I'm like,
Exactly.
oh my God, I have got all these dandelions and all these yellow little flowers.
I
And
love
then
it.
I feel bad, but in reality,
You're doing a
I'm
better
really
job.
destroying the environment. And I love
Yeah,
NomoMay.
the fertilizers aren't as bad as the pesticides, from what I've heard, but there is still that nutrient that gets washed away, the nutrient load that happens in our waters from
Right.
fertilizers. The pesticides, though, that's all bad, and it's really not good for your animals. And so that's kind of
I
part
think
of
my
our,
dog got thyroid cancer from
I've
pesticides
heard of
around
dogs,
because she would eat a lot of grass.
yeah, they pass away. I mean, they get sick, really
Yeah, she
sick.
died. She died.
Yeah, and that's our next, that's the way we're tying our initiative in for the healthy lawns is we have the gnome, but we also have a dog. And it's like, this is really affecting your pet. People don't think
Right.
about that. So yeah, lawns are a thing. I don't know, I don't understand the allure of a bright green clover-free lawn, but I don't feel bad.
And I like the NomoMay, but, and I've thought of this because I had just learned about NomoMay earlier this month. I don't know if I could, if I have the equipment to then cut my lawn. Like you need
Yeah,
a bigger mower and walker, so maybe that could be tied in as a service. I don't know.
no, that's a
Bring like
great
a
point.
tractor over and,
Um,
because if I didn't cut
yeah,
my lawn, it would be real big and thick by
especially this
now.
May with all the water that we had at the
Right.
beginning of May. Yeah, my
Because
lawnmower
at
had
the
a tough
beginning,
time.
I was like, I don't know if my mower will even get through the length of the lawn at the time, but
Yeah, I'll definitely write that down as a suggestion. I like it. Because you're right. And not everybody has, yeah, if we tell everybody they should not mow, then there should be services to help them mow once we want them to mow.
right.
Because people want to do the right thing. And maybe it says shortened, you do half the May or one May only
Yeah,
instead of every
yeah.
other week or something. That's
Okay,
great.
and I just want to mention before closing, so Paul and the caller, we do have Recycling 101 actually tomorrow. It's not virtual, however, it's out on Grand Island, 10:30 at their senior center. And then Tuesday, June 21st, 2 p.m. at the Amherst Senior Center. That's Recycling 101.
June 20.
21st, it's a Tuesday at the Amherst Senior Center.
Okay, what time again? I'm sorry.
2 p.m.
2 p.m. Thank you.
And you just call the center and let them know that you're coming out. Or you
Amherst,
can call Katie or myself.
you said Amherst Senior Center.
Yes. And
Oh,
I'll
thank
put that number down in the chat here. Three, 051. Sorry, I don't have my glasses on. 6363051. But it is there in the chat.
6363051.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. And I just want to thank you for joining us today and our caller. And Tracy, thanks so much. Great presentation, and we look forward to hearing more from you in the future.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, that'll end our webinar. Thank you again, and we'll hopefully see you in person as well as virtually.
Thank you.
Bye.